effect ring. You remember those? Welcome back. We're talking with Danny Thomas. He's a master clinical hypnotherapist. We were talking about when we were young, we would, well, I don't know about yourself, but I would look through magazines and see the little hypno ring that would change. It would, you know, vibrate a little bit,
Exactly.
and it showed you how to hypnotize somebody. I think it said do 2 or 3, step 1, step 2, and step 3, and you were instantly a hypnotist. Is that what you had to do to?
Doesn't it?
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
Golly, it'd be just a dandy thing if it did.
Everybody be a hypnotist.
But it doesn't, you know. Everybody can be hypnotized, but nobody can be hypnotized against their will. And there's a lot of confusion.
So you have to have willing participant.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of confusion in this area with regard to hypnosis. So many people think that there's something about it that's magical, like you were talking about the ring, or mystical, or occult, or demonic. None of that stuff is true about hypnosis. We actually go into hypnosis every day spontaneously.
We all do. You're saying I do.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Is that like when I daydream or something like that, or
well,
zone
yes,
out?
the zone out. When you're going to sleep at night and you're not really asleep, you're not really awake when you're in that twilight time. That is a light state of hypnosis.
Okay.
And you know, if you're going to get only, let's say, 3 hours of sleep, and you normally get 8 or 9. The last thing that you're thinking as you're going to sleep is, I'm going to be so tired in the morning when I wake up. Next time you're in that situation, instead of thinking, I'm going to be so exhausted tomorrow when I get up, think about that I'm going to be rested and full of energy.
So you're
rested
suggestive.
and full of energy. Rested and full of energy. When you wake up in the morning, you will be rested and full of energy, even though you've only had 3 hours of sleep.
So that's the power of positive thinking, basically, or
actually, it is in that twilight time. Your conscious mind is out of the way. Your subconscious mind is what's operating in that twilight time. And so you're giving your subconscious mind the suggestions, and it will bring about what you tell it, because your subconscious mind can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality.
Okay.
Huh.
Well, what
That's
type
weird.
of situations do you deal with patients?
Over 200. I see a lot of people to help stop smoking. About 94% of the people that I see to help stop smoking are successful. When I say successful, I mean that when they walk out of the office, they're not trying to quit. It's a done deal. They're not having any appreciable amount of withdrawals, cravings, or desire.
Okay.
but some people choose to go back, don't they?
Absolutely. I mean,
it's a conscious choice.
You know, I mean, tell me this. Does God have the power to make you do something against your will? Does that fit into it? No.
Exactly.
And so if God can't keep you from smoking, how in the world am I supposed to? If you decide to go back to smoking, of course you can.
Well, it's probably outside stimulus or situations that cause you to want to smoke again.
The number one reason that people go back to smoking is they're angry at their spouse.
Really?
That's the number one reason. Yes.
I'll be darned.
It's really interesting.
Well, it's an addictive drug, so I mean, it's, you know.
You know, but the bottom line of it is that it's more psychologically addictive than it is physically addictive. You won't ever talk to somebody who has been on, say, heroin, who got off of heroin and also quit smoking, who will not tell you that getting off of cigarettes was much more difficult than getting off the heroin. Now, certainly the heroin has a much stronger physical addiction. There's not any question about it. But the thing is that every time you smoke, you make the neural pathway in your brain stronger and stronger that you're a smoker. You could not possibly use heroin as often as you smoke. Otherwise, you'd OD, and that'd be the end of that trick.
So that's one of these things that people want that back. They want the hand-to-mouth thing because it's so repetitive and it's built up over several years.
Well, you know, I mean, I've seen, well, the person who smoked the longest actually smoked for 80 years. He was 89, started smoking when he was 9. I told him I think that you'd be better off if you'd just continue smoking at this point in your life, because I think that change might be more harmful to your health than you're continuing to smoke. He says, you know, I really don't care what you think. you hypnotize me, I'll stop smoking. I want to stop smoking. Well, what do you say to a guy that's 89 years old? Well, okay, then let's go. But I had one fellow started each day, 4:30 in the morning. First thing he does when he wakes up, he reaches over, picks up his pack of cigarettes, lights one, smokes it in bed. He said from that time till 9:30, when he's in bed, he finishes his last cigarette. There was never a time that he didn't have a cigarette either in his mouth, in his hand, or immediately beside of him.
Wow.
Now that's the most severe smoker that I've seen.
Yeah.
He'd smoked for 45 years. Okay. Now, he had just a little difficulty with the withdrawals or cravings. I don't remember what it was. It's been several years back. But nonetheless, anybody who has difficulty with withdrawals, cravings, or desire, then I want them to call and come back in. There'll be no charge for seeing them again as long as they don't smoke. Now, by the way, if people try to look up my telephone number, I'm not listed as Danny Thomas in the directory. I'm listed either as the Clinical Hypnosis Center or the Harrison Hypnosis Center. So if you don't remember that phone number, then you can certainly just get it out of the phone book with Harrison Hypnosis Center.
Okay.
But I work a lot with emotional problems as well. Panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I work with people on pain control. Never work with people on pain control without written doctor's approval.
Right. Okay.
But hypnosis is very effective.
When you get that written approval from a doctor, is it from his summation that this person needs extra care that maybe drugs can't help them with?
Well,
or
it isn't so much that as it is, I need that doctor to tell me whether blocking the pain for this patient is potentially dangerous to the patient. If it's potentially dangerous to the patient, then certainly we don't want to use hypnosis.
Right.
If it's something, for instance, a fellow had a wreck out on the bypass 7 years ago, and he was disabled, and he was in constant pain, and he had become addicted to the pain medication.
Right.
Well, I worked with him one time. He came back the next week. He said, "That's the best week that I've had in 7 years." He said, "I felt so good, I went out in my backyard and built a storage building that I've been needing."
Wow.
Wow.
Whoa, this was back pain. But anyway.
It was a benefit to him.
Yes.
No doubt.
So if it's not a medical condition, or if it's not any other kind of condition, then it falls into hypnotic care.
Yes. If it's
and you can determine that by consulting with a patient.
yes.
Okay.
Now, I saw a girl who was 22 when I saw her, and she told me that every time that she faced any kind of significant stress in her life, she'd immediately have a severe asthmatic attack, have to be hospitalized. If she didn't, she'd die. Okay, good or bad stress, didn't matter. That's when.
Right.
Okay. And she told me that her lungs were fully developed, but she could only use 50% of them. I said, "When did that start?" She said, "When she was 2 years old." Okay. And so I worked with her on removing the mental imprint that she had severe asthma and she couldn't run and play with the other children, and she couldn't use more than 50% of her lung capacity. One session, at the end of it, I said, "Now take a deep breath and fill your lungs." She took the deep breath, tears filled her eyes. She said, "I haven't ever been able to breathe like that before." Well, of course she could when she was 2 years old. What happened, she had a new baby sister, and the baby sister was getting all of the attention of the parents. And this little girl was used to getting all of the attention.
Yeah.
She goes over to her mother and she says, "I hurt." And her mother says, "It'll be okay." And then a little while goes by, she goes over to her dad, says, "I hurt." And he says, "What's it feel like?" And she said, "Like somebody stabbed me in the heart with a knife." Well, you know, people who get stabbed in the heart with a knife, they don't tell us how that feels. That's an emotionally charged statement, right?
Yeah.
That she overheard. Okay, but that got her dad's attention. He calls the doc. The doctor says, "Meet me at the ER." They went to the ER, And when the doctor examined her and so forth, he says she has a severe case of asthma. She won't ever be able to run and play like the other children. She'll never be able to use more
Well,
than 50%
that was a misdiagnosis.
Wow.
That's exactly right.
Right.
It was a psychological
So that was-
basis for
Okay.
that asthma.
So you
darned.
you care for people that may have a mental a mental staple on their life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We
Okay.
call it an imprint.
Imprint. Okay.
Okay.
But anyway, yes.
It's binding.
Yes. And it's an amazing thing. But in the space of a couple of hours, I mean, just like phobias, in the space of a couple of hours, the phobia is gone.
Do you consult? I mean, is there a free session for consultation?
Well,
how's that work?
I certainly am willing to do that.
Yeah.
Typically, when people come see me, the reason they come and see me is because they've talked to somebody who
Okay.
else has come to see
So
me.
there's some
Okay.
kind of diagnosis.
And so, you know, sure. And if I don't feel like I can help someone, if I'm not confident that I can, then I'll tell them, well,
Right.
this isn't going to work for you.
Right.
And I don't charge them anything for seeing them.
Okay.
Okay.
Now we had your phone number up there, 741-3970. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So they can call you and maybe set up
Sure.
an appointment.
Sure. And if they have questions about hypnosis,
Okay. Just give you a
feel
call.
free to call me.
All right.
You know, I do stage shows all over the University of Arkansas and countless high schools, proms, and so forth, and businesses. So I don't use any of the theatrics, as we were talking
Right.
earlier.
Right.
I don't use any of that in the office. That's all very straightforward. And the person is always in control. They're never under my control.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming here.
Well, thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
having
Giving
me.
us
We
a
might
little
have you come
insight.
back sometime and
appreciate
get
it.
more in depth.
Hey, that sounded like a plan to me.
Thanks, Danny.
You're
Thank
sure
you.
welcome.
Up next, we're going to be talking with James and Barbara Sharp about the Reagan Day dinner. Stay with us.